told you my criteria, right?
I know, and I didn't know. Right.
I know a person well,
Right.
and I would never.
Yeah, he's not mad at me. Not happy with me.
What is it?
We good? Okay. Right. Good evening. Welcome to our city council meetings this evening for Wednesday, September 27th. Just before we get going, do we have Teddy on? Is he on? We will probably have Councilmember Hodges join us virtually. But we'll get going with tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance by the one and only John Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. We'll move on to item 4.2, City Council comments and recognitions. Anything from the council this evening?
No, just a thank you to those on staff and the participants for the community luncheon today. It was really well attended and by a huge variety of different people that are partners with our community. So thank you for all the efforts that went forth in that, and thank you publicly to all the people who attended. That was awesome.
Mayor, I have an item.
Oh, Teddy, welcome.
I had a citizen reach out this last week of an incident in her neighborhood involving a trail crossing. And we got that over to city staff, and it was the right perfect timing to get to traffic committee and discussion, and they did a wonderful job of getting some solutions and some options out. So hopefully we can mitigate some issues of visibility and signage. But those are the kind of things that we'd like to brag on our staff about. They do a wonderful job when items are brought up in a timely manner and we can get to them.
Okay. Anything else? I want to give a shout out to our Arts Council and all of those youth and teenagers and that performed in Seussical Kids and James and the Giant Peach. They were a full house. They were packed house all 4 nights for both shows. It was amazing to see, and they were hilarious. And so much talent in our community. So thank you for everybody that played a role in that at all, from the parents to the producers to the actors themselves. So thank you for doing that. I also want to give a shout out, sorry, I'm going through my calendar here, to several of our officers. That night they hosted a Spanish-speaking, a Latino, kind of a community open house last Tuesday night. We had about 20 people here. I would say about 20 people here. But just hats off to them for seeing there's a need in the community right now, a growing Latino population. And so for them to take that effort to reach out and kind of walk through and listen to them and understand their concerns, it was a great night. It was productive, and I thought it was fantastic. So hats off to your people, Chief. And sorry, one more. And thank you to those of our staff that showed up for CJ's viewing and funeral. It was amazing to be down there and seeing so many staff at his funeral and at the viewing. Just not an easy day down there, but it was amazing to see so much support for that amazing man and what he brought to this community. And I don't know if Jenny Lynn's listening, but our thoughts and prayers are still with you and your family, and we miss you, CJ, and appreciate all he did for our community as well. So yeah, that being said, we'll move on to public comment at this point. Audience members may bring any item to the City Council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. Public comments for this meeting will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the council may submit a comment by emailing recorder@herriman.org or by visiting herriman.org/agendas and minutes, where there's a link to fill out an online public comment form. And that statement will be incorporated into the public record. So at this point tonight, I have one so far, so we'll start with John Patterson.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. City Manager, thank you for this 2 minutes. I have 3 items I want to discuss. The first is to thank you for the trail system that we enjoy here in Herriman. I appreciate your continued support for its expansion and maintenance. It is a great gift to the people. The second item is I'm asking that you maintain the leash law that currently is in effect in Herriman. Everybody's dog is very friendly, right? Until they're not. And unfortunately, there are people like my wife who are afraid of dogs, and when we are out on the trail and encounter almost 90% of the dogs not on leash, it can become very difficult for her and causes great fear and anxiety in her. And so please maintain the leash law. Third, I'd love to see some enforcement of that leash law. I've talked with your animal control personnel. They do the best they can, and obviously there are more pressing matters for them than the leash law and dogs up on the trail. But it would be nice if we could see some enforcement up there on the trail in early mornings. And I'm gonna leave the 25 minutes or seconds, excuse me, left to you all. Thank you much.
Thank you, John. If you could just state your name for us.
Yes, good evening. Mal Armstrong. I'm Vice President of the Utah Taxpayers Association. We appreciate the opportunity we had to meet with several of you over the last couple of weeks to discuss Herriman City's plan to build a government-owned fiber network. The Utah Taxpayers Association has been around for over 100 years, well before fiber networks and even before the internet. For more than 20 years, we've opposed government-owned fiber networks on the basis that they pose an undue burden to taxpayers. In the model currently being discussed by Herriman, that burden is in the form of a utility fee, which would be imposed to all city residences and businesses unless they chose to opt out. We understand the need for internet services. However, this could and should be done by private companies. Since our meetings with the City Council members, we learned that one such private company, All West Communications, has designed and proposed a complete citywide fiber build-out for the City of Herriman. The construction, maintenance, repair, upgrades, and expansion, as well as the risks and the costs, would be entirely shouldered by All West Communications. The company has undertaken similar projects in other parts of Utah, such as Farmington. The cost to taxpayers would be $0. Concerns about free market economics are misguided. Other companies have had the opportunity to make a similar proposal and have not taken it, and All West will compete with these services that the companies provide. In fact, a government-owned taxpayer-subsidized network represents a greater threat to free market, since government could raise the fees that subsidize it indefinitely, whether it was financially prudent or not. The City Council is aware of the proposal made by All West, but we have not seen any public disclosure of it by the City Council. Instead of seriously considering the plans, the City Council meetings have focused on how to complicate the opt-out process and how to avoid liability if the network were to fail. Herriman taxpayers deserve to be made aware of all the alternatives before final decisions are made, hence our efforts to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. See no further comment at this time. We will go on to council reports. Start with Jared.
None at this time.
Okay. Teddy, you have anything?
I do. I have 2. So I was able to go out to the South Hills development area where they had a really good demonstration through street planning, really super detailed infrastructure plans, community layout. It was very impressive, and I was just wanted to make sure that it was probably recognized that happened last week. Also, just yesterday morning, the sewer board meeting. We will be having a couple public meetings or public hearings soon. We are looking at a rate increase, the first one in 10 years. It looks like it's going to be $5 a month if passed. So look for public hearings on that. It's probably going to be the same time as our November budget public hearing. It'll all be noticed and put out to everybody in the sewer district. So that's my 2 reports. Thanks.
Thank you, Teddy. Sherry?
We had our board meeting for Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District. There is currently a survey out there, so I would encourage our residents to take the survey on recycling. As you know, well, maybe you do or maybe you don't know, but we offer recycling cans once a week, and the cost to service recycling is actually pretty high right now, up in the $70 a ton kind of range, and so which is about twice what it costs to just take it to the regular landfill. But the question is, does the public benefit outweigh the costs at some point? And so there's a survey on there that I'd encourage people to go fill out. And obviously, the board's decision currently is to continue that once a week recycling, and the preliminary information we've been getting in on the survey supports that. And so that would be potentially be the direction we continue to go, but please fill out that survey. And then we're just moving through our budget process right now, and just suffering the same pains most places are, just trying to find qualified drivers and keep them in-house by paying them enough money to keep them around, but then trying to be efficient with the funding that people are being charged to dump their garbage. Just becomes a pretty good balancing act. And we have the same issue with supply chain in our garbage trucks. We haven't been getting any of those either, and so it makes it look like, wow, your cash balance is really high. Why do you have this much money? And it's because they haven't delivered the trucks. And so in the next coming budget, we'll have to put out about $6 to $7 million for trucks, which would have been budgeted incrementally over the last few years. So just some pains with supply chain still, and increased costs on maintenance and personnel, which obviously we're heavy on personnel because they have to drive the trucks. So just the challenges of meeting a growing budget, not because misuse of funds, simply because the economy impacting every aspect of life.
Okay, Steve?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay. I will just report on COM. We had our Council of Mayors meeting last week. We got off homelessness, finally got off homelessness. It's solved for the year. We did talk about, I think there's a growing consensus among cities in the county to start holding a biannual, is that the word, biannual? Every other year. And in the non-election year, a truth and taxation hearing, just kind of, whether it's to just accept the current rate or what have it, but there's a kind of a growing consensus that maybe if all the cities in the county go that route, it's not a yearly thing, like some push that far, we're not kind of going that route, but maybe in every other year in the non-election year, just to analyze everything and to, if nothing else, to educate at that point how the process works. So that's really what that was all about, right? I don't think there was anything else really in COM this week, so. With that, we will move.
Could you?
Never done that before in a meeting. Kind of love the F1.
You haven't worn it long enough.
Yeah, right. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 8, the consent agenda. Look for either a motion or if we need to make comments on it.
I have no comments tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Glad to hear. Glad to
I
hear.
looked that way first.
So,
Motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
okay, motion by Jared,
Second.
second by Steve. Jared,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, that motion carries. One item really on the agenda tonight, 9.1, consideration of a resolution approving the advance of funds for the purpose of purchasing a hook lift truck and a valve truck, and adopting official intent to reimburse said funds at a later date. Kyle?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a fairly straightforward item. Last year when we did our capital lease, I brought forward a similar resolution essentially because we would be issuing tax-exempt debt in the form of a capital lease, the IRS requires a resolution by you as the governing board stating that you're agreeable to us paying for the items and then getting reimbursed through a capital lease. This is different than what the previous finance director did. He would initiate the capital lease and then pay for the items with the lease. It does create more work on the end of the lessor because they're having to hold those funds and keep them in reserve. My concern is, especially with the way prices have been fluctuating lately, I don't want to issue a capital lease in case the prices potentially could change. Now, we do issue purchase orders and we do enter into agreements. We do know the prices for most of the things. But it's really just a procedural item just to allow us to pay for the funds up front and then get reimbursed with the lease at the end, so we know the exact amount to bond. As mentioned in the staff report, we have already put the order in for the hook lift truck. That was done prior to our council discussions about capital assets. The other item has not been ordered. I did put it in the resolution for convenience, so I wouldn't be coming back for that if the council does agree to let staff purchase that item. But right now it is on hold and hasn't been ordered. Are there any questions for me?
Okay. Appreciate it, Kyle. Any discussion or look for a vote or for a motion?
I like straightforward items. Motion to approve resolution number R43-2023, approving the advance of funds for the purpose of purchasing a hook lift truck and valve truck and adopting official intent to reimburse said funds at a later date through financing.
Okay. Motion by Jared, second by Sherry. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that motion carries. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of our general meeting tonight. Future meetings, next planning meeting is next week on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Next city council meeting will be in 2 weeks on the 11th at 7 o'clock with an earlier work meeting at 5. Are we starting at 5 that night? 5 o'clock?
4:30 or 5, something.
Work meeting starts at 5, general meeting at 7. Events coming up, we have 2 more weeks of the Hungry Herriman and the farmer's market with the big finale on the 9th, which is the Herriman Howl, which was going to be massive. One of the highest attended events we get. So speaking of that, I just real fast, this should have been, I wanted to shout out our event staff for the Yeti event. We had so many positive comments about that. Simple, easy yet fun trail. I went on 2 trails I don't know if I ever would go on in the city for not, truly, because they're not by, but it was fun to get out on them and really enjoy them. So we appreciate our event staff and all they do.
Mitch was a big part of that as well, so we need to give him some credit where credit's due.
Thanks, Mitch. What role did he play?
The most important one.
Okay. Okay, with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn and go back to work meeting.
I'll make a motion to recommence to work meeting.
Motion by Sherry, second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys. I didn't acknowledge you tonight. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys.